style just yet, because I haven't talked about modernism. Should probably touch on that first. So, peeking out from just behind Trump Tower is that black column of a building. That black column is the former IBM Tower. It was designed by Mies van der Rohe, who we call the father of modernism in architecture. Mies van der Rohe didn't like the Beaux-Arts style. He thought that was pulling us backward, making the city old and stale. He instead wanted to push us forward and do something new that nobody else was doing. Nobody else was doing this very sleek, stark, minimalist idea. Mies van der Rohe coined the phrase, less is more. Just wanted to use the things that he needed, peel everything else away, just use the steel and the glass, the straight lines, and the right angles. That's all he felt were necessary in a building, were straight lines and right angles. One of his students, though, felt a little bit differently about straight lines and right angles and designed these, what we affectionately call the corn cob towers, on our right-hand side. They are officially known as Marina City. They were built in 1967, designed by Bertrand Goldberg. Bertrand Goldberg designed these as a city within the city. So you see, you can dock your boats at river level. There are restaurants, common areas, the House of Blues and the Hotel Saks at ground level. The first 19 floors of each tower are parking, but don't worry, it is valet. They will park for you. Floor 20 is 360-degree views of the city and common areas. Floors 21 through 60 are condos, and there is a rooftop garden atop each tower. You never have to leave. You can move in there and just stay there forever. Which I know sounds kind of sad now, but in the 60s that totally worked as a marketing campaign. Now just up ahead on the right-hand side is that red brick building with the clock up on the top. You may have noticed that we like putting clocks up on top of our towers. It's mostly because Chicago is a train-based city. Trains need to run on time. In order for that to happen, trains need passengers, which means passengers need to know the time. And in an era before cell phones, before wristwatches, before everybody had a pocket watch, not everyone had access to the time at any given moment of the day. So as a courtesy to the general public, we started putting clocks up on top of our towers. That way everyone can know the time whenever they possibly needed to. This red brick building is the Reed Murdoch building from 1913. As we are passing it, you'll note there's the end cap here. There are 5 bays of windows before we get to the middle, the clock up on the top, and there are 4 bays of windows before the end cap on the other side. That might seem strange. It should seem strange, because back in 1913, this building was actually constructed symmetrically. However, progress came along. It came time to extend LaSalle Street, which we are about to cross under, at which point there were 2 options. Option 1 was to curve in LaSalle Street, guys. There's already a building there. But no, that was going to be way too inconvenient for way too many people. They instead decided to go with option 2, which was to lop off 20 feet of the building, push in the end cap, and have a straight LaSalle Street. Now just up ahead on the right-hand side is this giant of a building. This is an excellent example of the style Art Deco. Now Art Deco was popular in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and is trademarked by a couple of things. First, you are going to see a lot of repetition. Same thing over and over and over again, even down to the decorations. The gold diamonds, for instance, on this building, you see over and over and over again. You're also going to see a lot of vertical lines. Vertical lines draw the eye upward on an Art Deco building. This is the Merchandise Mart from 1931. It was home for many years to the stockhouses, the warehouses of Marshall Field's company. Now home to boutique furniture design showrooms, things like that. So if you're looking for new furniture, might I suggest checking out the Merchandise Mart. This is an absolute Goliath of a building. There are 7 miles of hallways inside there. As we come out from under this bridge, you can take a look down the block and see just how far back the building extends. Until 2008, this building, not the block it's on, not the area it's in, the building had its own zip code. And now we can see just how far back the building does, in fact, extend. So we're coming out the main branch of the Chicago River now. We're going to go up and down each of the north and south branches, but before we do, I want to talk about this general geographic area in which we find ourselves. This geographic area is called Wolf Point. It is here at Wolf Point back in 1837 that the head honchos, the bigwigs, the decision makers of the day got together and decided to officially incorporate Chicago as a city. That occurred March 4th, 1837, when we became the City of the Stinking Onion. Wait, what? Yes, the City of the Stinking Onion. The word Chicago comes from the old Indian word Chicagua, which means stinking onion or stinking leaf, because when we were so named by the Indian people, this wasn't a particularly fertile land. It was kind of swampy, and the only thing that would in fact grow here was the stinking onion. So we were appropriately named, in fact, for our location. Alright, we're curving around. We're going into the north branch of the river now. As we do, there's the building that's pretty much directly in front of us, but it's going to end up on our left-hand side, that earth tone building with the round windows up near the top. That is the Fulton House from 1908. As we approach it and as we pass it, take a look at the balconies and notice how thick the walls are. The walls are very, very thick on this particular building because when it was constructed in 1908, it was actually built as a refrigeration warehouse. And it stayed that way until the late 1970s, when it was decided to turn the building into condos. At which point they found they had a couple of challenges. Challenge number one, they had to thaw out the building, which took over a year. Challenge number two, they had to get rid of all the horsehair. What? Yes, all the horsehair that had been used as insulation and was thus lining all those very thick walls. Challenge number three, they had to individually punch out each and every one of those windows and balconies without compromising the structure of the building, which again took quite some time, considering just how thick all those walls are. Just beyond the Fulton House on our left are these triangular buildings. These are the River Cottages from 1990. They were also designed by Harry Weiss, the nautical man, the sailor who did the Swiss Hotel that we saw in the main branch. These are triangular in nature. There are the triangles coming down the sides, the spiral staircases, and the porthole-style windows we can see on the diagonal are also nice nautical touches. Harry Weiss was a big fan of our river. He loved drawing attention to it. He wanted people to notice it and to appreciate it like he did, which was kind of a radical idea at the time. Not everyone was quite so in love with the Chicago River as Harry Weiss was. For instance, take a look on our right-hand side at this blue and gray building. This is the East Bank Club from 1980. And architecturally, it's not really all that interesting. It's just a gym. It is kind of interesting, though, to note that we are looking at the back of the building. Back in 1980, we wanted nothing to do with the river. We were physically turning our backs on it. Didn't put any windows at river level. Just wanted to completely ignore that the river was a thing at all, which is kind of weird because the river is the main reason that there are people here. But that not loving the river attitude is one that we had for kind of a long time. Back in the late 1800s, back when we were redeveloping as a city, we were becoming the train city and the steel city and the meat packing city. There was a lot going on here, which was great. But the people of Chicago were just kind of throwing everything they didn't need anymore into the river. Not our best idea, because that flowed directly into Lake Michigan, our source of drinking water, and the fifth largest source of fresh water in all of the world. So, once about 12% of Chicago's population died from water-based diseases like cholera and dysentery, officials thought maybe we should change something. Again, at this point, two options. Option one was to put out laws that said stop throwing stuff in the river, guys. That's a bad idea. But here's a little hint about people from Chicago. For those of you not from Chicago, we can be a little bit stubborn and a little bit resistant to change. So that wasn't necessarily going to be the easiest of options. Instead, they decided to go with option two, because option two only required changing one thing instead of changing the ways of all the people of Chicago. Option two was to change the flow of the river. Let's do that. That sounds easier. So, in the year 1900, a 3-year project was completed out by Navy Pier where we began. They dug out a portion of the mouth of the river about 15 feet deep, put in the system of locks and levees that was patented just for us,